Yeah, our topic today is one God, many paths, and I thought this might be a good subject to dust off and take a look at again in view of all the stuff that's going on around the world, because a lot of it is based on religious intolerance, is it not? Judaism and Islam, well, they're going at it again over in Gaza. Sunni and Shia Muslims are bombing each other's mosques in Iraq. Christians in this country, they're playing the victim and claiming they're being persecuted because they can't force their religious views on others. And then we have the Buddhists. And this was shocking to me. This is a headline from July 4th. Our Buddhist friends seem to be losing their inner peace and compassion, at least according to this headline from Time magazine. Once again, racial tensions in Burma turn deadly. Buddhist gangs, including monks, attacked Muslim-owned businesses and a mosque in violence that has left 2 dead. That is just plain wrong. I mean, Buddhist gangs, that is just wrong on so many levels. You know, we think that Buddhism is somehow immune to the shadow side of things, and I guess not. And the question I have is, why can't we all just get along? Why can't we all just get along? Why does every single religion on the planet have this dark side of intolerance and violence? And I wish I had an easy answer. I think it might have to do with people. Religion would be great if it wasn't for the people. I've said it before, I'll say it again. The human ego will use anything, including religion, in order to gain wealth, power, security, status, whatever it happens to be. In order for our ego to feel secure, everyone has to conform to the same worldview that it has. Anything that looks or sounds different is automatically labeled by the ego as dangerous and a threat. It's a tribal mentality that still exists in many people today, many individuals and many groups of people. And yet, for all of the bad news that we hear about religious strife around the world, the truth that we need to affirm is that there are far more people who are practicing their chosen faith peacefully and compassionately. Fortunately, these are, you think of all the people in the world, billions and billions. It's a small amount of people, but they do manage to make a lot of noise. And somehow the people that continue to practice their religion, their faith, peacefully and compassionately, they have found a way to evolve beyond the kind of tribalism that's causing all the trouble. And evolution tends to take us in that direction, beyond that tribal survival mentality, but it is a slow process. Well, one of the good places that this kind of evolution can lead to is something that's called pluralism. And this is an idea, it's an idea that's been around forever, but there's a fellow named Jim Berklow who gives us this definition of pluralism. He said, pluralism is the idea that my religion is good for me, and your religion may turn out to be as good for you as mine is for me. So, pluralism is the concept that there are multiple loci of truth and salvation among the religions. Now, pluralism does not imply that all religions are the same or that all religions are equal, but it does recognize the possibility that my way is not the only way and that my religion is not necessarily superior to yours. Jim Berklow, he's with an outfit called the Center for Progressive Christianity on this next slide here. That's their website. They're a great organization that I've talked about before. You can see over here, that's Bishop John Shelby Spong's smiling face up there. He's active in this organization along with people like Karen Armstrong and Marcus Borg, who we've talked about, whose books we work with a lot here at Unity of Auburn. So there's a very important part of that definition of pluralism that I want to focus on here for starters this morning, and it's the part that says that pluralism does not imply that all religions are the same or that all religions are equal. So when we say one God, many paths, we're not suggesting that all paths should be regarded as equally valid or even valid at all. For example, an Islamic extremist may believe that martyrdom is a path to God. They claim that, and we do not have to honor or validate or accept that. On the other hand, how many people do we know out there in the world who lump all of Islam into the extremist category and then reject any expression of the Islamic faith? That don't work either, because every religion has a shadow side. Every religion, and now even the Buddhists apparently, have violent extremists, and we don't have to validate that, and we don't have to accept that. And that's one of the biggest problems with postmodern political correctness, as they like to call it. And it infects the New Age movement too, where we hear folks say things like, oh well, that's their truth, or they have their truth, and I have mine. Or things like, all religions basically teach the same thing. No, they don't. You can always find similarities, but when people say things like that they all teach the same thing or that they're all the same, what they're trying to do is to either eliminate or gloss over or ignore the differences, as if differences are automatically dangerous. Karen and I had a Bible teacher when we were in the seminary, Reverend Vern Barnett, who was also a columnist with the Kansas City Star, and he wrote this great article once about this idea that when we try to say that all religions are the same, what we're really saying is that different is dangerous. I thought it was a fascinating idea. He says different is not dangerous. Different is just different. We got to look at it that way. So, and I find it fascinating that at both ends of the spectrum we see the same mentality, the extreme tribal, egoic mentality, and the extreme postmodern mentality both see different as dangerous. At the tribal, egoic level, it leads to violence, and in the postmodern level, it leads to ignorance and tolerance of things that perhaps ought not to be tolerated or that we ought to speak up about. It's interesting. True pluralism says we embrace differences while at the same time not allowing violence or the oppression of basic human freedom in the name of religion or spirituality, for that matter. And it's a balancing act, and what it requires is patience and, above all, the application of critical thinking skills. Most of you know I'm a big fan of Carl Sagan. I've been known to refer to him as St. Carl from time to time. He was a very secular man, an atheist some would say, and he had this very gentle and compassionate way of promoting reason and science in the face of superstition and pseudoscience. And I love this quote from Carl Sagan. He says, "It pays to keep an open mind, but not so open your brains fall out." And they fall out and they land on the floor and they go splat. Ouch. It's a great quote. Great quote. Our co-founder, Charles Fillmore, also tried to be open-minded and discerning when he was talking about other religions, and yet not so open-minded that, again, the brains fall out on the floor. There's a great quote from Charles, something he wrote in 1895 from what was at that time the earliest version of Unity magazine. And here's what Charles said. He said, "We have been readers among all schools of thought, and we find good in all of them. We do not claim to have discovered any new truths, nor have had any special revelation of truth. There is truth in every religion. It is my privilege to take truth from any source, put it into my religion, and make it a fundamental rule of action in my life." And there's more to that we'll get to here in just a little bit. And there's a lot to unpack. That's a short paragraph. There's a lot to unpack there. Notice first, he doesn't say that all religions are good. There's a big difference. He says we find good in all of them. Instead of saying every religion is true, he says there is truth in all of them. What he's saying is that really we can learn something valuable and useful just about everywhere we look. We just need to be curious and learn how to ask the right questions and sort through things and be discerning about what we find out. Another very interesting thing in this paragraph is the sentence that says, I don't know if I have it up there by itself. Nope, not quite. We do not claim to have had any special revelation of truth. We do not claim in unity to have had any special revelation of truth. And this is something that we see echoed in Charles' other writings. There's another article, and this time from 1918, same publication, where he's trying to define unity's approach to truth. And he says this about unity. He says, it is in this respect totally different from the other religious systems of the world because it does not in any respect rest its authority upon revelation. It has no dogmas or creeds, nor are its students expected to believe anything which they cannot logically demonstrate to be true. It gives us a lot of freedom. It gives us a lot of freedom, and again, there's that comment about revelation. A special revelation is when a person or a group of people claim that God or some other supernatural entity gave them, either individually or as a group, special knowledge or truth that the rest of us wouldn't be able to discern on our own. It came through them exclusively. The Book of Mormon is a special revelation that was given to Joseph Smith. The Quran was a special revelation that was given to Muhammad. Many books in the Bible, especially, obviously Revelation, are written as special revelations that were given direct from God to the author. And it still is going on today. There are a lot of New Age books out there that claim to be special revelations. Now think about it. If everyone relies on their own little special revelation that they got individually or as a group, if they rely on a special revelation for truth and knowledge that is not subject to objective verification, logical demonstration, as Charles was talking about, not open to question, because when something is a special revelation to you or your group, you dare not question it. What is that going to do to communication between groups, each one claiming their special revelation? It's going to be a problem. Communication is going to be challenging, if not impossible, in those situations. And that's what Charles was on to here. He's trying to open up the lines of communication. Charles believed that if we were open-minded and discerning, we could all get along, all the different paths. And the world's been, we have to admit, a bit slow to take up the challenge, but it is coming along despite the gloomy headlines that we see. And there are things that we can do to help promote this, to help promote communication, open-mindedness, and things that are going to help us to get along so that we can truly say one God, many paths. So I'm going to talk about 8 steps that we can take, and most of which we're already taking, toward a healthy form of pluralism. One that honors differences without denying them and keeps the avenues of communication open so that the ego can't get a toehold and use religion to defend its own interests, resulting in violence and intolerance and all sorts of bad things. We want a healthy form of pluralism. And this first step right here, it all starts with education. How to respect other religions. Step 1, educate yourself. Take it from me. I've been a Catholic, I've been a Buddhist, I've been none of the above. Now I'm a unity minister, and I will tell you that unity, in my humble opinion, is at the top of the chart when it comes to wanting to learn about other religions. And here's how it's supposed to work. The purpose of education is to replace an empty mind with an open one. And what is the corollary that we have to add to that? Not so open that your brains fall out on the floor. Ouch, yeah, that's right. Our Sunday study group, which meets before our service here on Sunday, is finishing up with Houston Smith's fantastic book on world religions. So they're studying world religions here every Sunday morning. Thursday night, Spirit Wind covers all sorts of different interfaith topics throughout the course of the year. And we have at least one series here on Sundays talking about other religions. Probably going to do it in September before we go into our 7-week series. So I think we can all agree that we're doing our part to raise consciousness by education here in Unity. It's one of our core values, I think. The next step, the next thing we can do is to be patient. Don't form opinions too soon. Be willing to gather the information and sort it and sift it and filter it. We want to be slow to judge. The next thing is to build relationships. Build relationships with people of other faiths, obviously, which can be a bit of a challenge here in Auburn because, I mean, we've been here a while now and I have yet to find a synagogue or a mosque here in Auburn, but all that means is that we have to be a little more creative, a little more proactive, because there is a Buddhist center in Penryn. There is a synagogue in Roseville, a couple of them actually, and there's an Islamic center in Sacramento. Try attending one of their services if you get the opportunity and if they're open to that. Part of the education process as well, building relationships and educating. Okay, this next one I think this is just a good piece of advice anytime, but especially if we're having to discuss religious issues. We want to keep things light. We want to keep our sense of humor handy. Sometimes we have to remember to lighten up. Or if you're a Buddhist, you want to enlighten up. And, judging by some of the church signs we see outside churches, there are some churches that are actually starting to get this now. They're starting to get that sense of humor, either accidentally or on purpose. Signs like this one here. First Reformed Church of Bethlehem, so the sign says, "Keep using my name in vain and I'll make rush hour longer. Sign God." That's great. Or how about this one? The Church of God, their sign says, "Revival canceled due to death." That's like a psychics convention being canceled due to unforeseen circumstances, right? I mean, that just don't work. This next one, I love this one. The Church of the Cross, United Methodist Church, their sign says, "Don't let worries kill you. Let the church help." and finally one more. Cape Coral Community Church says, "Now is a good time to visit. Our pastor is on vacation." Whew. Yeah. Nothing like a vote of confidence in your senior minister or pastor or whatever you want to call them. So, you got to keep things light. You got to keep a sense of humor about this stuff. And I'll tell you what, there's tons more where that comes from. So I have a treasure trove to work with for the next few years, I think. Okay, the next step is to ask questions. Listen. And that's just the opposite of what we see happening in the world, where the dominant message is, I talk, you listen, right? Nobody wants to be a student. Nobody wants to have what the Buddhists call beginner's mind. And that's really the only way for real communication to happen, is to go in as an empty vessel, to be able to listen. You're not going to be able to ask intelligent questions unless you've been listening first. Next, be willing to say, I don't understand yet. It's okay. We're keeping the possibility alive instead of closing the door when we hit a rough spot and trying to communicate with someone or to understand what's going on. And this is very similar to my own personal mantra, which is, I don't know. Because certainty is sure to keep us stuck. Next, honor convictions. Don't try to remake people in your own image. Everyone has to find their own path to transformation. There's no such thing as one size fits all. And we tried something like that in this country with the Native Americans. We forced them to learn our language, to embrace our faith, to wear our clothes, and go to our schools, and it didn't work. I mean, it was a terrible, shameful phase in our evolution that I hope that we never repeat again. Finally, the last step. Well, of course, the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Every major religion in the world has its own original version of the Golden Rule. So simple to understand and seemingly impossible to practice. But practice it we must, because that's going to make a huge difference in the world. Just saying one God and many paths, it's a good start. It's a good affirmation, but that alone isn't enough. There has to be a depth of understanding, and there has to be action behind it. These are some action steps that we can use to back that up, and that's what we're all about here at Unity. See you all next week.